I'm Sandy Petersen, and we're going to talk about the Sky Empire in the Gods' War. Sky starts with an advantage and a disadvantage. The sun god, their greater god, starts in hell, in inner hell, and their starting shrine is on the spike, which, as those who have been following this campaign know, gets destroyed when the spike shatters. Now, let's talk about their ability. Their ability is called Nightfall, and what it is that when the sun god is killed or eliminated by any means, instead of being killed, you simply put it in hell. So it can't ever be removed from off the map. It's always in play. Now, if he's in hell and you attack and kill him, then he has to respawn in the other part of hell. He can't stay in the part he's in. So, for example, if you're using the sun god to guard a shrine in hell and darkness attacks him, he has to go to the other part, so he can't stay there and keep the shrine alive. Now, his weakness, and it's pretty grim, is called Optimist, and it means that you can't declare battle in hell. It also means that you can't use either of your great decree gifts or hero quests during the first action phase. So like darkness, you're kind of taken by surprise by the start of the Gods' War, and you're not fully prepared. Just like darkness can't leave hell the first action phase, you can't use your great decrees, but these kick in later on and become really useful. And just as a side note, the gameplay reason that you can't use the great decrees is because it unbalances the game for other players in unpredictable ways, and so as a game designer I frowned on that. But I've covered it with, I've lampshaded it by saying, oh, it's because they aren't prepared. So there. A little peek into Sandy Petersen's brain, or lack of saying. Now, their buildings. They have shrines, temples, and a ziggurat, like most factions. The special ability of their shrines and temples, not their shrines, but their temples and ziggurats, is they inflict double combat results. Thus, a Sky Temple inflicts 2 routes, and a Sky Ziggurat inflicts 2 kills. That means that, for example, if I want to conquer a storm or a darkness temple, and it doesn't have any guards, I can just send 2 units and be sure to conquer it. With a Sky Temple, I gotta send 3. So they're more awkward to take. And that extra defense means that you can use your units more readily for other purposes besides guarding your buildings. You can kind of go on the prowl with them, and that helps because often Sky has slightly less units than the average player, or they're scattered around more. So this is actually a really good benefit for Sky. Now, Sky's units are the Archer, their minion. They cost 1, you get 4 of them. They have the Emperor, who costs 2, has a combat of 2. He looks like a dragon. No doubt they're showing him on the green screen behind me right now. There's the Phoenixes, which cost 2 and have a combat of 1. Now, the Phoenixes are the lesser god, and I'm going to give you some advice right now. Pretty much as Sky, you should probably never ever summon a Phoenix. Not because they're not good, but because you get a gift later on called Sun Spear that has a way better way of getting your Phoenixes into play than summoning it. So watch for that. And finally, there's the Sun God, Yelm. Now, Yelm has an ostensible cost of 3, and the purpose of that cost is so when someone's using the runer ability that affects the cost of 4, that uses the cost to determine something, so you know what the cost is, but you never have to pay it because he's never dead. His combat is 1 in hell and 3 elsewhere. Oh, also as a note, the Emperor's combat is also 1 in hell, 2 elsewhere. So what that means is all of your units have a combat of 1 in hell, which means that you can't use your own guys to get yourself out of hell. You have to rely on someone else to get permission, which is, of course, a major part of the early gameplay for the Sun God. Now, the Sun God's special ability is Dawn, and whenever the Sun God moves to an area outside of hell, you can also move all your other units in a kind of dance of death as you move around and reposition. Now, this doesn't mean just when you move out of hell to a land area outside of hell, from hell to a land area. I mean, anytime you moved to any area outside of, for example, if you are in already outside hell and you move to another place outside hell, then you get to use this ability. Okay? Now, it also doesn't count if you are in the Sky Dome. So in fact, you don't want Yelm to go up to the sky. You want him to be on the surface world, moving around and modifying the units. So now, there's other reasons that you want to have buildings in the Sky Dome. There's the important tactical reasons why that's a good place for you to be. You just may not want the Sun God to be there because then you don't get the full benefit of his Dawn ability. Okay, let's talk about his hero quest. The most obvious big hero quest for him is Sun God exits Hell. You're focused on this pretty hard in the first few turns. If you do exit Hell, you get 2 runes and you get the gift, but whoever gave you permission to get out of Hell also gets a rune. So you can use that as kind of a way to help bribe or bully them and letting you out, but it may not be sufficient. Anyway, there's that. You probably spend most of the second turn. The first turn, usually you can't get out of Hell, so you just like throw your hands in the air and do other things. Second turn, you're starting to lobby people to get you out of Hell. Third turn, you're lobbying a little more desperately, and usually that's when you get out of Hell. Sometimes second turn. Okay, other hero quests. You get one when you place your ziggurat, like every other empire. You get one when you conquer or destroy a shrine or chaos nest in battle. Of course, you can't conquer a chaos nest, but you can destroy it. And for this reason, chaos often doesn't want to place a chaos nest next to a sky shrine in the early game, except possibly on the spike, because it's usually you don't want to summon things on the spike, because he knows if he puts a chaos nest next to your shrine that you'll summon an archer there, a minion, and then kill the chaos nest and get a gift. So you're powerfully motivated to kill his nests. It's worth it to you, unlike other players. So that is kind of like a defensive thing against chaos in a sense. You also get a gift if you conquer or destroy an enemy building that costs that is not a shrine or chaos nest. So if you can, typically a temple or something, right? So this is one of the last gifts you usually get. You're wandering around the board trying to get your army in such a position that you can take out an enemy temple. When you finally do it, you get that gift and you cheer because it's often your last gift. You have 2 more gifts. And these are the great decrees that I mentioned earlier you can't get in the first action phase. Now, these gifts are actions that you perform. You spend power, and then you pick another player, and one of the great decrees gives that player 2 power, and the other great decree gives the player you pick a rune. Now, obviously, it doesn't have to be the same player, but the avowed purpose of these gifts early in the game, of the great decrees, is so you can use them to bribe people into letting you out of Hell. And of course, some people will say, no, you must pay me first, and then you pay them, and then of course they could betray you. And then some people say, okay, you can pay me later, and then you can betray them. But the point is that you have these gifts, and players know about it, so generally no one lets you out of Hell for free. They want to at least get a great decree out of it, and that's fine, because that's part of the bullying and the bribing and the tricking of the game. Sun is more focused on diplomacy than a lot of players. They're kind of like, in theory, they're the ruling faction that rules the universe, at least before the Gods War started. And so you kind of still behave like that, where you're saying, I want you to do this, and if you do this, I will pay you. And then, you're kind of bossing other factions around, and it's all kind of adorable. And if it works out, then you're really good. So let's talk about Sun's gifts. They have some pretty fabulous gifts. One of them is another reason you want to get the Sun out of Hell. Not only do you get a gift for getting him out of Hell, but one of the gifts you can get is solar energy. This gives you 3 power during the power phase if the Sun God's not in Hell, which obviously is highly desirable because you can find a lot of uses for that 3 power. Another gift is actually they have a combat gift for their minions, which is not that common. Most minions don't get one, but they have one. It's called Shanasy, and what it does, because your minions are archers and they have ranged weapons, what it lets you do is if you have an archer in an area adjacent to the area undergoing combat, and the combat has to have you involved, you can't shoot into a battle that 2 other people are in, then you get to add the adjacent archer's combat dice to your combat in that area. Okay? Now, there's one benefit and one restriction. The benefit is that the archers in the adjacent area can't suffer death. They get to add their dice, but they can't be killed or routed, so they're safe. They're just shooting arrows in. The restriction is that you don't get to use Shanasy if the combat is a lone building all by itself. They don't shoot to defend your shrines when they get killed. But if you do put a unit there, and there's a unit, and so for example, really common is you have a shrine somewhere, and next to it is another shrine, and they both have an archer. Well, if an enemy attacks either shrine, then the archer there rolls 2 dice, 1 for himself, 1 for the adjacent archer. And of course, you don't have to have it be an archer in the area being attacked. It can be any unit. It's just the archers nearby shoot into it. So if you set up a network of defense of your units, if you plan it properly, then you can have a pretty sturdy defense. And this, I mentioned earlier, it's good for Sky to be in the sky itself. And the reason is because the Sky Dome has a huge number of adjacent areas they can shoot into. And so by having archers in the sky, you can cover a lot of the border areas on the map and really, you know, set yourself up to be cool. Okay, now I also intimated that there was a Sun Spear gift, which was for the lesser gods. Here's how it works. You pick an enemy unit, except a greater god, and you roll a die. If you roll higher than that unit's cost, then it's killed, or eliminated technically. A kill is for battle. You take it off the map and you replace it with a phoenix from your pool. And that's how you get phoenixes into play. Now, it costs 2, same as summoning a phoenix, and of course there's a chance you'll fail, but if you don't fail, not only do you get a phoenix, but you kill an enemy unit, which is really good. So that's why I said generally players should not summon phoenixes, you should rely on Sunspear, because it's pretty great. Sunspear's greatest weakness is that if all 3 phoenixes are in play, then you can't Sunspear anymore because you have none in your pool. So at that point, you need to go into action and get 1 killed so you can Sunspear again. One of the very first gifts that Sky often takes is Call to Justice, which happens during the council phase. What this does, you select any unit on the map from any empire and you move it to the Sun God's territory. And this is really good to get early because if you're still in Hell, generally the case, you could use it to drag other gods or units to Hell so that, you know, they're there and they can let you out of Hell. If they don't want to let you out of Hell, then you can just keep dragging them back there, which is a pain, so they hate that. And you can eventually accumulate a bunch of the units there until finally they crack into the terrain and let you out. You can also use it once you get out of Hell to either pull units to you so you can attack and kill them later on during the action phase, or you can pull your own units to yourself to get them back from having been routed, or to give the Sun God some extra meat shields, whatever you want. It's just, you know, it's just a useful general purpose thing. It's really critical in the early game, not so much in the late game, but it's still handy even in the late game. Okay, Arrogance is the Emperor's battle gift. And what it lets him do is the Emperor picks a unit in the battle. It can be yours, it can be theirs, and that unit gets blanked out for the battle. They don't roll dice, they don't participate in combat, they don't count as being there for conquest or destruction of buildings, they're just out of the fight. Now the good news is they can't be killed. The bad news is that you didn't get the use of them. Now of course the Emperor can blank out himself and thus be safe from battle, or he can blank out, you know, something else more useful. But that's the Arrogance ability. It's pretty handy. And his final ability is Noblesse. Well, it's not final. You can get it whenever you want. But usually this is used as one of the Great Decrees. It's called Noblesse Oblige. What it lets you do is if you have both your Great Decree gifts, which is usually the case, if you have one of them, you probably have them both, you can remove them, okay, during the council phase. When you do this, or during the power phase actually, you get 1 victory point and a rune. Now, the actual function of removing it of the victory point for removing them is that since you do this during the power phase, during the council phase, you don't have that fragment complete. Normally that would give you a victory point, but you removed them, so you don't get that, but you get the victory point from Noblesse Oblige, so you're still covered. You got your victory point. Plus you get a rune, which is always good. So every turn you can be getting a rune for Noblesse Oblige. Plus, this also, because you've removed Noblesse Oblige, you can now use the Great Decree gifts again for what I like to call social engineering. You say, hey, Darkness, you know, why don't you go attack Storm over there, and if you do, I will give you 2 power. And then, oh, you know, Storm, fight back against Darkness, and I'll give you 1 rune, and so you can keep bullying, using diplomacy on the players throughout the entire game as a result of these gifts. And that is pretty handy. And again, it kind of shows the way that Sky tries to operate as sort of like the puppet master, trying to control the other units from a distance and set himself up. You're hard to attack, it's awkward to fight you, because your temples do double damage, you have Shanasy setting up a network of defense. If they do move a unit into the area, quite often you Sun Spear one of them so they have 1 less unit, and then you have an extra guy there besides. And so, or the Emperor is blanking out one of their units. So you're pretty good defensively. Enough so that players tend to attack you sort of as a last resort. I mean, they'll still do it, obviously, but you're not their first choice if they have other options. And then because you're unpleasant to attack, if you combine this with your various gifts and rewards you can give other players, and different, you know, Call to Justice, your Great Decrees, you can use this to dominate the game and organize things. It's really for a player who likes interaction with other players a lot and trash talking at the table and that kind of thing. It's not for a guy who wants to sit in the corner and be his own private self. If you're sun god, you're going to be heavily involved in what's going on the table all the time, watching the other players and keeping track of them. And many players really like that. I'm one of them. And so the sun god is perfect for those kind of players.